The rain had been steady since sunset, a thin silver curtain that blurred the forecourt lights and made the puddles shimmer like broken mirrors. Working the night shift at the station meant long hours with nothing but the hum of the refrigerators for company. Yet the rain always gave the place a strange kind of comfort. It softened the world outside and made the small bright shop feel like a shelter. I stood behind the counter, watching droplets race down the glass door of the cooler that held the sodas. The bottles sat in tight rows, cola with its deep caramel shine, orange fizz that seemed to glow even through the plastic, lemon lime with its pale frostiness. Each time I opened the door, chilled air wrapped around my hand, and the caps clicked softly as the bottles shifted. The chocolate shelf sat across from them, rich with sweet smells that lingered even through the wrappers. Dark bars with clean square edges, milk chocolate with soft rounded shapes, caramel-filled pieces that promised a slow melt, and nutty ones that rattled quietly when I restocked them. I liked lining them up by height. It made the place feel more orderly than it ever really was. Around 2 in the morning, a single car rolled in, headlights cutting wide arcs through the rain. The driver jogged inside, shaking droplets from his jacket and leaving a trail on the tile. He moved with the same tired rhythm I had, as if the night belonged to people like us, who worked or wandered when everyone else slept. He picked a cola, then paused at the chocolates. His fingers hovered, deciding. He chose a bar with crisp edges and held it like it might warm his cold hands. Quiet settled again after he left. The rain kept tapping on the windows. The refrigerators kept humming. I felt the odd peace that comes from knowing the world was still turning, even when no one was watching. In the small glow of the station, with soda bottles shining like glass lanterns and chocolate bars resting in neat rows, the night felt steady. Keeping entertained on the night shift is its own quiet art. The station never gives you much to do after the early rush fades, so you learn to make small routines feel meaningful. I liked listening to the soft rhythm of the rain while sorting the shelves, moving the soda bottles until the labels lined up perfectly. It felt like a puzzle that reset every few hours. When the shop fell silent, I would walk the aisles at an easy pace. The crisp smell from the coffee machine mixed with the sweet scent from the chocolates, and it kept the place from feeling empty. I would check the expiry dates, straighten a packet here, tighten a bottle cap there. The small tasks helped the minutes slide by without dragging. Sometimes I watched the security monitors, not out of fear, just curiosity. A fox might drift across the forecourt, pausing to look at its own reflection in a puddle. A lorry might roll past without stopping, its lights stretching across the rain like faint brushstrokes. I kept a notebook under the counter too. Whenever the night felt slower than usual, I wrote down odd thoughts or things I had noticed. One page listed the most popular chocolates. Another page had sketches of customers I had seen once and would probably never see again. The notebook reminded me that even in a quiet place, stories were happening all the time. The night shift wasn't glamorous, but it had its own rhythm. Once you learnt it, the hours felt calm rather than lonely. The rain outside, the glow of the coolers, the quiet hum of the shop. It all became a kind of company. I ended up at the gas station almost by accident. After Blockbuster closed in my town, I drifted between odd jobs. None of them steady, none of them terrible. The station manager hired me after a 5-minute interview, where he mostly asked if I could handle lonely hours and count change without messing it up. I said yes to both, which was mostly true. The real reason I needed a new job traced back to my last month at Blockbuster. I had always loved movies, maybe a little too much. During the late shifts, the store got so quiet that the aisles seemed to hum with leftover dialogue from whatever film had been rented the most that week. One night I figured it would not hurt to put on a movie while I tidied the shelves. Then one movie turned into 2. I started timing my cleaning with the pacing of whatever I was watching. I convinced myself it made me more efficient. It worked fine until the regional manager showed up unannounced. He walked in during the final scene of an action film, the volume a little louder than it should have been, the counters half cleaned, the returns bin untouched. He did not yell, he just gave me a look that said everything. The next day he called me into the office and told me it was not personal, but I could not treat my shift like a private cinema. He was right. I knew it. Losing that job stung, though it pushed me into the quiet glow of the gas station. Working nights here felt different. No movies to tempt me, only the steady hum of the refrigerators and the gentle tap of rain on the windows. I sometimes missed the shelves of old DVDs, the smell of plastic cases and popcorn seasoning, the thrill of picking a movie to keep me company. Still, the station gave me a kind of peace Blockbuster never did. The rain outside, the lonely road, the glow of soda bottles lined up in perfect rows. It felt like a fresh start, even if it came from a mistake I probably should have seen coming. Around 3:30, the kind of hour when the night feels stretched thin, a heavy rumble rolled into the forecourt. The ground seemed to vibrate before I even saw the truck. Its headlights cut through the rain, tall and bright, and the cab hissed as it settled to a stop. I recognized it almost immediately. The driver had become a quiet regular. He pushed the door open with a shoulder, boots dripping, jacket damp from long miles. He always looked like he had been carved out of the road itself, all solid posture and tired eyes. Still, he carried an easy calm that helped break up the night. "You got the good coffee on?" he asked, voice low and steady. "Depends," I said. "If you mean strong enough to wake the dead, then yes." That got a faint smile from him. He walked to the machine and filled a large cup, steam curling around his hands. After that, he made his usual rounds. First, the soda cooler. He preferred the big bottles, the ones that rattled slightly because they were packed so tight. Then the chocolate shelf. He always chose the simple bars, no fillings, no strange flavors, just straight chocolate. Said it kept him alert without feeling heavy. He set his items on the counter and glanced outside at the endless rain. 40 more miles to go tonight, he said. Just me, the road, and whatever this weather thinks it's doing. You hold up all right out there? I asked. He nodded. Road's easier than people think. It is the quiet that gets to some folks. I stopped minding it a long time ago. That line stuck with me. He felt like the kind of person who had made peace with solitude long before he ever started hauling freight through the night. He paid, thanked me in that calm, worn-in way of his, and stepped back into the rain. The truck's engine rumbled back to life, lights glowing through the mist as he pulled onto the road. When the sound faded, the station felt even quieter than before, though not in a lonely way, more like the place had taken a deep breath after he left. The night shift had many small anchors, and he was one of them, a moving part of the routine, steady as the hum of the refrigerators and the soft rattle of soda bottles when I opened the cooler. It reminded me that even in the middle of a rainy night, people were out there pushing through, mile after mile, each of us keeping the dark company in our own ways. Once the trucker's taillights faded into the rain, the quiet settled thickly again. That was when the tiredness crept in, not the sharp kind that makes your eyes snap shut, but the slow, heavy pull that settles behind your ribs and tugs gently, like a reminder you cannot ignore forever. I leaned on the counter and felt the ache in my legs from standing too long. The air inside the shop was cool from the chillers, but my body felt warm and lazy, caught between alertness and the promise of rest. My bed slipped into my thoughts without warning. I pictured the soft dip in the mattress, the pillow that kept its shape just right, the blankets that held warmth better than any heater. It almost hurt to think about it. Rain tapped steadily on the windows, the same rhythm I had listened to during 100 shifts, but it sounded different when I was this tired, softer, almost inviting, like it was telling me the world outside was winding down, even if I was not allowed to yet. I checked the clock. A couple more hours. Not awful, but long enough that the idea of my bed felt like a prize hanging just out of reach. I imagined walking through my front door, kicking off my shoes, peeling off the damp smell of the night, and sinking into that perfect pocket of warmth. No humming refrigerators. No flickering lights, no sudden beeps from the door sensor. Just quiet, the kind that wraps around you instead of working you. The station lights buzzed faintly overhead, snapping me back. The shelves still needed straightening. The coffee machine needed wiping down. The notebook sat under the counter, waiting for another line or two. I pushed off the counter and stretched my shoulders. The tiredness was still there, but familiar, almost comforting in its own way. Every night shift had a moment like this, when the body slipped into dreaming while the mind kept working. It made the eventual walk home feel even sweeter. My bed would be there soon enough. For now, the rain, the hum, and the soft glow of the station had me for a little while longer. As the clock crawled toward the last stretch of the shift, the cold in the station started to creep in. It always began at the floor. The tiles held the chill like they were built for it, and the draft that slipped under the front door worked its way around my ankles no matter how many times I tried to block it with the mat. The refrigerators didn't help either. Their steady hum came with a constant bite of cold air that leaked out every time I opened one to straighten the sodas. I rubbed my hands together, breath puffing, just faintly in front of me. Nights like this made the place feel less like a shop and more like the world's brightest lit icebox. I had a few tricks for keeping warm. Nothing elegant, mostly desperation disguised as routine. I'd wrap my arms across my chest and walk the aisles slowly, letting movement shake the cold off my bones. Sometimes I held a hot coffee cup, even if I wasn't in the mood to drink it. The heat seeped through the cardboard and settled into my palms, which felt like a small luxury in a place where everything else hummed at refrigerator temperature. If the cold got too sharp, I'd stand by the tiny back room where the old radiator lived. It wasn't powerful enough to warm the store, not even close, but it created a pocket of heat that felt like standing beside a campfire. I'd lean against the doorframe for a minute or two, soaking in what warmth I could before heading back out. I kept a spare hoodie under the counter as well. Faded, oversized, soft from too many washes. It wasn't part of the uniform, but no one complained at 3 a.m. The hood held heat better than anything else, and once it was up, the station felt a little less icy. The cold never really left though. It just settled into the background, like another part of the night shift, along with the hum of the soda coolers and the rain tapping against the glass. I learnt to work with it, the same way I learnt to make peace with the silence, the tiredness, and the slow hours. In its own odd way, the cold made the thought of home even sweeter. My warm bed, my thick blankets, the quiet of my room without a single draft slipping under the door. The contrast kept me going, one chilly hour at a time. I checked the clock again, and felt a small lift in my chest. Not long now. The tiredness had settled into a slow sway, the kind that made every movement feel just a little heavier. The cold was still clinging to the tiles, creeping up through my shoes, but the end of the shift always gave me a bit of momentum. I decided to pour one last coffee for the final stretch. The machine hissed warmly, filling the cup with steam that rose like a tiny cloud. I wrapped my hands around it and held on for a moment. The heat soaked into my palms, pushing back the cold in a way nothing else in the station ever quite managed. I took a sip, strong, a little bitter, perfect for staying awake just long enough to finish what needed doing. Cleaning up was the last real task of the night, and moving around helped more than any radiator ever could. I walked the aisles, gathering stray wrappers, nudging bottles back into straight lines, and wiping down the counters. Each step warmed me a little, shaking off the chill that had settled into my shoulders. The mop water steamed faintly as I filled the bucket. I pushed the mop across the floor in slow, even strokes, watching the reflections of the overhead lights ripple across the wet tiles. It felt almost calming, the rhythm of it, the soft swish of the mop head, the low hum of the refrigerators, a small kind of order in a place built on passing moments. By the time I finished, the station felt different, cleaner, warmer from the simple act of moving. The rain still tapped on the windows, steady as ever, but it sounded friendlier now, like the night was easing up just a little. The last bit of coffee waited on the counter. My hoodie sleeves were pulled over my hands. The store was ready for morning. I was ready to go home. My bed was only a short walk and a sunrise away, and the thought of it kept me going as I locked the till, switched off the bright aisle lights, and let the station settle into its final quiet before dawn.